Stirewalt. I'll tell you what, I'm Dana Perino.
And I'm Chris Stirewalt.
And here's what we'll tell you this hour. Our top headlines of the day. 2 days out and another letter from the FBI director that's shaking up the race. The first polls will close 50 hours from now, and we have blockbuster new polls. Plus, it's crazy on the campaign trail, a scare for Donald Trump, and all the latest from the campaign swings for both candidates. Also, a sneak peek inside Fox News' brand spanking new studio, and a look at where the magic happens, the decision desk. And control of the Senate is headed down to the wire. We'll tell you what you need to know. Finally, this gator's got bite. He wrote that. The Data Dive takes you to the key Florida counties and what we know about how they're voting. But
Tucker Carlson knows things. He knows so many things, and in fact, he is soon to be the anchor of a brand new 7 p.m. show right here on the Fox News channel every weeknight. Yay! A.B. Stoddard is too cool to even have a show, but she is the associate editor at Real Clear Politics and a TBD. Michael Meehan, he is a Democratic strategist and president of Squared Communications.
And he's the star of his own show.
Yes.
At
he
home.
Lives in his own reality show constantly.
Let's just, because this news just happened and we're live and we have you here, let's have you react to the Comey letter. This is the FBI director just 2 hours ago releasing a letter, and I think we have for you here. It says, since my letter, the FBI investigation team has been working around the clock to process and review a large volume of emails from a device obtained in connection with an related criminal investigation. And then it says, during that process, we reviewed all the communications that were to and from Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. And based on our review, we have not changed our conclusions that we expressed in July with respect to Hillary Clinton, which basically Tucker was saying that there was no criminal intent. They don't see anything here. And so we have this very unusual circumstance of the FBI director coming out in July to say no prosecution warranted.
Right.
Coming out again in October saying, oh, wait, we're going to take another look. A lot of outcry about that. And then 2 days before an election saying, okay, well, yeah, never mind.
And also not mentioned in the letter, we should point out, is the apology to whatever agent had to look through Anthony Weiner's laptop.
650,000
like
emails.
La Wolf, man.
I don't really, I mean, there are a couple things that are unclear. I mean, there's certainly credulous press coverage of this. It's over. Is the investigation, the criminal investigation in Hillary Clinton over? It's not.
I don't think so. He doesn't say that either.
Right, he doesn't say that.
He doesn't say that. And the campaign is saying, and it's being, of course, repeated by everyone who's covering it. But I don't think it's strictly speaking true, and it's the relevant question. I mean, I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what to make of the letter he sent, a Friday ago either. But it seems like something is going on. There are a number of investigations into Hillary and her family's foundations. Where are they now? I don't know. I don't know how to respond, and I also don't know if on a Sunday afternoon this is going to penetrate into the minds of the relatively small number of people who haven't voted yet. I don't know.
I want to ask you, AB, since the reemergence of the email controversy, I guess that was just a Friday ago.
Yeah.
9 days.
Did you see that reflected in any of the polling that you guys have looked at RCP?
Well, her lead started to erode before that with the Obamacare premium hikes that were pretty dramatic. Trump jumped on it right away very shrewdly and uncharacteristically really huge to message on it for several days. And I think the WikiLeaks stuff actually was piling up, the Bill Clinton Inc. stuff, just sort of greasy Clinton world, no boundaries, double dealing stuff coming out of the Podesta emails from WikiLeaks started to erode her lead before the Friday bombshell on October 28th. I do think that there's probably an investigation into the foundation. I think the threshold for prosecution for corruption is actually lower than the threshold for prosecution for misuse of classified, meaning that it's easier to bust them for double dealing while she was Secretary of State and running the Clinton Foundation, which is likely the subject of the deleted 33,000 emails. That could bring her great peril. But for the volunteer who was calling around for the Clinton campaign a few days ago saying, I know she's corrupt, but it usually beats crazy, I think the new line is she's been exonerated. And most voters will not separate the foundation investigation from the email, and they'll think that this is great.
And it's already been factored in?
And Michael, I would say, Big Julie in the musical Guys and Dolls, who is the guy that he's afraid of, the guy that Frank Sinatra is afraid of, he says, my record is perfect. 32 arrests, no convictions. And the Hillary Clinton approach is that I've been cleared again. I'm cleared again. I wonder, does this actually break through? Does this give her something to work with at the end?
In 50 hours to go in a campaign, you can't spend enough money on TV ads to actually convey a message that carries. Right. Except now a Democrat has a bumper sticker where the FBI director says, "I've been resolved." Right. So usually the news hole shuts down on the Friday before the Tuesday, and all you do is this little tarmac running around, rah-rah, sis, boom, bye, here we are. You can't get a message out. You buy a lot of messages, people tune those out. But here I think what Tucker was saying is you're going to carry through the news cycle now in a way that you wouldn't have been able to carry. Even if you had that letter and you put it on TV, people wouldn't believe it as much as they're going to believe it coming from the news.
And there is evidence. Let's take a look at the Washington Post tracker poll here, which you will find delicious.
It'll be amazing when we show it to you.
It smells vaguely of cinnamon. But if you look at the ABC, that's out to a 5-point in the WAPO poll.
But how is that possible? Because that was only 1 point. 4 days ago.
So the thing about the tracking polls is that they're little rubber bandy. They bounce around a lot. So it's a 3-day rolling average, and you're taking a new sample of about 300 people every night, and you're rolling it into a new thing.
Same people?
No. You're taking different people. But what happens is it goes bing, 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 and it bounces around. For example, she was never up 12. This poll had her up 12 points, and then it got down to 1 and back and forth. But what it tells us is the trend. What we really care about polling at this point is what's the trend like. And I want you to see the Wall Street Journal poll, which also smells vaguely of cinnamon, and I think you will enjoy. 44 to 40. I'm always hungry. That's 4 points for Hillary Clinton in that poll. Now, it's not what it was once upon a time, but again, the trend is better than it was last time.
Okay, well, we're going to have a chance to talk about that with the panel more, because it's one thing to talk about the national polls, but it's more important maybe now to look at the state battlegrounds.
Yeah.
And we're going to do that on this show.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to.
Why don't we do that?
Because we are down to only hours left in the 2016 campaign, as Michael was saying, just 50 to go. In just a few minutes, we'll take you behind the scenes to where all the action will be on Tuesday night. Our election team has been working overtime, believe me, getting ready to bring you wall-to-wall coverage of the big night.
Hey, listen up. I told you to be focused, and you're not focused right now. Now listen up. You've got an older gentleman who is supporting his candidate. He's not doing nothing. You don't have to worry about him. Hold up. First of all, we live in a country that respects free speech.
Last night, Obama had a protester, and nobody would listen to him. He kept saying the same thing over and over, nasty, over and over and over. But they never showed the protester with him, because that's a negative thing.
I am sick and tired of the negative, dark, divisive, dangerous vision and behavior of people who support Donald Trump.
The FBI has reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private secretary.
We like the fact that the polls are tied here, and it's a trend that we've been seeing internally for a while under a hail of criticism.
Well, there's a look at just a bit of what has been another wild week on the campaign trail. Lots of stuff happening, and lots of stuff. I was saying before the break that there's the national polls to look at, and that's interesting. But is it more important, if you were following this like a nerd, that you would look at the state polls?
Why are you looking at me when you say that,
I don't know.
So the state polls matter. No lie. But the problem is they're not as frequent, and they're not of as good quality. It is a substandard quality to what we do on the national level. The country is easier to poll than an individual state. It's easier to get a representative sample because we have more to choose from. So it's harder to do. But there are some good new polls out, and we do have some good insights. And I just want to run through these real quick before we get to our esteemed and delicious panel. We have first off the top, this is Ohio. This is the Columbus Dispatch. Good poll. Hillary Clinton's actually up a point in Ohio, which is a reversal of the trend. Donald Trump has had a very consistent lead in Ohio, so that's something that's a little bit surprising. But then let's look at Pennsylvania. Ooh. Now, her lead is down a little. It's still 6 points. She's still likely to win in Pennsylvania, but there's a little contraction there. And now let's look at the Des Moines Register, which is a very good poll. This is high-end stuff. And Donald Trump is crushing Hillary Clinton in Iowa. And I want to raise a question with the panel. I want to start with Tucker Carlson of Early Prime Excellence. And that is, for Donald Trump, this map could look very different than prior Republicans. And when we see the numbers like we see in Iowa, up 7 points in Iowa. This is a state Barack Obama won twice.
That's right.
We know why that's happening is because blue-collar white voters in states like Iowa connect with Donald Trump and are responding to him in a way that we haven't seen before. How different do you expect the map to look?
There's also been massive immigration into Iowa that has changed the social fabric of the state.
Meatpacking.
That's exactly right. Chicken and the rest. So that there's a reaction against that. I'm really struck by the Pennsylvania numbers. If you talk to the Clinton campaign about their internals, which they'll sort of tell you about, they think they're way up in Pennsylvania, and yet today they've moved the emphasis from Ohio to Pennsylvania. They took buses of labor volunteers and shunted them from Ohio to Pennsylvania today. They're having election night with Bruce Springsteen, both Clintons, both Obamas at Independence Hall. Why is that? If you're not worried about the state, why are you putting all this emphasis? I mean, there are tons of people heading there right now to get out the vote in Pennsylvania. I don't know why they're worried about Pennsylvania, but they clearly are.
Do you know why, Michael?
Yes, so there's a strike going on in Philadelphia.
SEPTA.
And the way that the way the Democrats win the state is to run up the numbers big in the city of Philadelphia, the city of Pittsburgh, win the buckle suburbs there, and then lose, they call it Alabama, right? The parts where my wife's from, the center of the state, which is, and my in-laws, and they live with a lot of Trump supporters, but the numbers of people there are not enough to carry the state, and that's why the Democrats carried it going across. Plus, our convention was in Philly, so there's a little bookend story here about
they want a cushion of about 300 or 350,000 votes coming out of Philly proper, right? That's what they want.
Yes, and it also gets you a Senate seat, right? So you've got a low name ID Senate candidate. So if you can go pick up a Senate seat as well as pick up and stop Trump there, it's very few places he can go if he doesn't get there.
Okay, now we are going to talk about the Megillah, Florida, later in the data dive. We truly are. On Ohio, AB, so if we think about an election, only one Republican has ever won the state of Ohio and not won the presidency. If you took, and that was Richard Nixon in 1960.
Please say who it was.
It was Richard Nixon in 1960.
Obviously,
and
of course.
and Sam Giancana stole it from Nick. He did in Chicago. That election was
rigged.
You want to talk about rigged? That was the rig. That was the straight rigged stuff. Sorry, Momo. But when we look at a map in which Ohio's electoral influence, Ohio's electoral importance is shifting, and now it's all about North Carolina. Now it's moving south. What's up?
Well, Ohio this year is crazy. John Kasich, the governor, is one of the strongest Trump adversaries there is in the Republican Party. He's very open about it. Wrote in John McCain, has run around being a good party boy because he hopes to rebuild the party in a post-Trump era, trying to help other Republicans like John McCain get reelected to the Senate, other candidates as well. He did not show up at his own convention in Cleveland that his state was hosting with pride, and they did a fabulous job, by the way. And then you have Rob Portman, the Senate candidate, who's been ahead of Trump, doing very well, Republican there, separating from Trump.
Up by, I think, 18.
12, 15.
But ran the campaign of the year, by the way, but also always separated from Trump by a long shot. And then you have fewer Latinos, sort of less of a battleground, more of those white working class, non-college Trump voters, and it's sort of slipping out of reach. You have a closed window for early voting, so fewer opportunities for African-American, apathetic African-American vote there. And North Carolina is just a changing electorate. It's really becoming purple. 54% of the electorate in North Carolina in 2012 was women. It's just, there's early Latino support.
North Carolina is starting to look a lot more like Virginia.
People are transplanted from other places. The research quarter is just it's a better thing for a state for Democrats going forward. I don't think Ohio is going to be the last stand in cycles to come.
All right.
Interesting. I was just saying that I think that North Carolina is starting to look like Virginia.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at those pockets, like the Research Triangle looks a lot like Northern Virginia.
But the immigration patterns are similar, too.
The immigration patterns are similar, and also you have a similar black population, and you also have a young... The whole thing is, how young is the median age in your state? We could do an interesting thing. If this wasn't our second to last show, we could do an interesting thing in the future and talk about median age in your state and median Trump vote.
We could, but we know we'll do that in our dreams or on Twitter. All right, we're with the panel coming up, but first I'll take you down to Nerd Central. That's him for an exclusive sneak peek at how the calls will be made a little under 50 hours from now with one of the most important nerds, Chris Stirewalt. That's next. When races get called too Tuesday night is not just a matter of waiting for the numbers and reporting it to the world. There is a lot of work that goes into figuring it all out. So last night, I took a trip into the belly of the beast. Decision desk for 48 hours from now. Chris will be churning out data all night long.
Churn it out.
All right, Chris, so this is where the magic happens?
We like to think of it.
It's like your birthday and Christmas all in one?
And like, because Easter, because of Peeps.
But this is, we need a name for it. The problem is, so the old one was the Nerd Tank or the Nerdquarium because we were behind a wall of glass for the decision desk. But now, I don't know what this is, the Nerd Tunnel. This is the Nerd Mine, something like that. It needs a name. There's Arnon Mishkin.
Is he a nerd?
He's nerd number one. In the 2012 election, when Megyn Kelly came back to ask us why we had called Ohio, why we called it, I forget which publication deemed Arnon nerd number one and me nerd number two. And I have never been so proud and honored to be the second nerd to any other nerd.
So who all sits here? Who are these people that aren't sitting here yet?
So these
but on election night, what will happen?
So Arnon and my boss, Bill Salmon, and me, and analysts from outside the company, inside the company, that come here and crunch these numbers. And the way that an exit poll works, and I'm going to say this right because Dana Blanton, our polling maven, is over here.
Yes, she is.
And Arnon Mishkin is right here. So I've got to be very careful to say these things.
You have minders.
But the way that, exactly, these are like the political agents from the North Korean government.
Okay.
But the way that exit polling works is, an exit poll is a poll. It just happens to be a particularly good poll because it's about, 5,000 human beings get sampled? Even more than that. Even more than that. And it's overlaid with phone call polls that are taken the same day. It's a consortium of media outlets pooled together to produce this awesome sample of voters. And you know what's so good about them? They're all likely voters because they get them at the polling place.
But wait, but that tells you what? Because
I'll tell you what it tells me.
What does it tell you?
What it tells us is what to expect. And now that sample gets weighted, and then we start to match it up with, or the system starts to match it up with real vote as it comes in. So at about 5 o'clock, they will release Arnon from inside the glass tube where the data is kept. He will come in, and we will all sit around like guppies waiting to be fed when he and Dana and company will come in and give us the dope. And that'll be right after 5 o'clock. And then we will say, it's going to look like this or it's going to look like that. And then,
but you, at that point, you don't tell the public that.
No.
It's only right here.
We hold that very, very closely. There's a briefing, and we hold it very closely because, remember, we have a special obligation. We don't want to affect the outcome of the election before the polls close. We want everybody to have a chance to vote. We don't want to be
unlike what happened in 2004.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But so we then are comparing real vote with the expected vote from the poll to see how accurate the poll is. The poll can then be reweighted, and then we can really get cooking.
So
with
tell me, what is it like when you're about to make a call? Who does that?
Bill Salmon is the man who pulls the trigger. Arnon and his team are data ninjas, but Bill is the guy that pushes the button, pushes the plunger that makes giant lights and buzzers and everything.
How much pressure is there for you or Fox News to make a call before somebody else? Or do you not feel that pressure?
We want to beat everybody all of the time, but it's never worth being wrong, and it's never worth even risking being wrong because it happens that the Republic is here.
That's true. Okay, don't run into that.
Don't run into that.
We're going to go upstairs.
This is for a more smoother, an elevated nerd, the James Bond of nerds, Bill the Hemdog Hemmer. Brother.
This is like
we have outlawed the word nerd.
Why?
Up here.
Really?
Because we call it, how are you?
Are we analysts?
Welcome to the data deck.
The data deck.
Did you get that?
Yeah, Captain Kirk.
See what I did there? So we have taken the billboard.
Right.
And we supersized it.
Get out of here. What?
Well, I mean, just here's an example, right?
Okay.
Where we can take states,
right?
Counties. You grew up in.
Well, I was born in Weston County. I'll tell you right. Can I hit it?
You can try. Let's see if it works.
You can try.
There we go.
Right? Weston County. I got it right. Thank you, family.
Wait, you're from a square county in a square state, is what you're saying?
Looks
yes,
like
in the Black Hills of Wyoming.
So here's what I think is great about this whole room.
Okay.
Is that you get the information before anyone else gets the information.
Oh, up here?
Yes. Well, I mean.
Am I going to be up here?
You will, actually.
Excellent.
In fact, you'll be right over here.
Okay.
I mean, shall we go?
Let's try at the desk. Come on.
The great value of the data deck is that you get information before everybody else. So you'll have your spin meisters on TV telling you how it's going, and you can say,
but
But really,
but that's not what the facts show. So that's great value up here.
All right. So when we talk about, we were just down in the nerd tunnel where we're harvesting that data. As we're doing that, what are you curating? What are the things when you look at this map? What's the first thing that you're going to look for on Election Day that's going to tell you the story of the night?
Yeah, I think every time Carl Cameron has come on television this past week, he's mentioned 4 states.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida.
And Florida.
Right. And we know Donald J. Trump has to win 3 of those 4 states, right? Or or the map gets.
Well, if he wins 4 of 4, he would be
blowing the
president
lights
of the
out.
United States.
Yeah.
Short of that, if he were to lose one of those, if it's in North Carolina, you can still get to 270 for him.
But then you need a Michigan. Then you need a Wisconsin.
Perhaps.
Or that's why Donald Trump's going to Minnesota.
Is he going to Minnesota?
He is.
On Monday.
Get out of it.
I was asking them, so how much pressure they're under to make a call and to make it before any other network, but to get it right. How does the information from down there get to you so that how much confidence do you need to have before you touch a state?
Every number that they're getting downstairs, not everyone, but most of the numbers will be fed through this machine directly.
So it's robots. There's no human error.
We see at the same time that they see it.
Okay.
There is other data that they can use, though, historical data. I was talking to Carl about that this past weekend. And remember Ohio 4 years ago when he was challenging the call we made?
We were just talking about that.
You were?
Yeah.
It was a big moment.
Downstairs in the nerd tunnel?
Yeah.
I was with him at that time. I knew why. He wasn't saying Romney was going to win Ohio.
He just said he wanted us to wait to put him out of his misery.
He was making the case that it was too early to make the call because of exactly what you just described. And the history for the counties and the vote, be it Republican or Democrat.
But we had such a delicious slice of electoral pumpkin pie that we had just served up.
The map could look very different. The last few times you've
Entirely
done this,
possible.
the map has looked pretty much the same with a few. But could this be a historical night where you're going to unveil for America that are watching Fox News Channel a new map?
It has the potential.
And a northern tier of states with the working class white voters and all that stuff. This could be a realigning election, and this is why it feels like history. Yeah. And that's why America needs more Bill Hemmer.
Right.
This is the simplest thing.
I love it when I see you on Fox News.
Thank you. Welcome to the data deck.
This is where we're going to get down. This is going to be good. All right, now we do have to take a quick break. But when we come back, it is time to put our panel to the test with the news quiz and have a bunch of fun as we get ready for Election Day. We'll be right back. And it is, in fact, time for the I'll Tell You What Data Dive. Let's go swimming. Last week's halftime report average, Hillary Clinton 44.8 to 40.2. She was up a good bit. What is it this week?
Down.
44.8 to 42.6. She lost ground, but keeps, as they would say in Philadelphia, a little cushion. Okay. Now, we care
For the what?
A cushion. We care very much about all of the states, and all of the country matters very much to us. But let's face it, Florida gets to decide this election, basically. So what's the state of the race in Florida? Hillary Clinton has actually moved ahead by a little less than a point in Florida, but it is as close as it could possibly be. And we know that because we have last election cycle's results. Look at that. Now, I think it looks like a bird, a bird feeding, a drinking bird.
That's a pose in yoga, by the way.
A flamingo. But there's what Florida looked like in 2012, and here's how it works. Florida is New York in the south and Alabama in the north. You see those big blue counties down at the southern tip at the bird's beak. And that is, of course, Miami-Dade County. That's Broward County. That's the breadbasket of Democratic votes. And we look at the northern part of the state, and it's overwhelmingly red. In some places, really, really, really red.
What's the bird's eye right there, the blue one?
That's a good question, Dana Perino. Right there, the eyeball of the bird is right there on the I-4 corridor. And you see those 3 blue counties across the middle of the state. You see those 3 blue counties. That's what decides every election. That's Orange County, Pinellas County, and Hillsborough County, but this is Tampa, St. Pete on the Gulf Coast there, and then over to Orange County, which is Orlando. This decides every election in Florida because these are the swing voters and tons of suburbanites. Now, we have an advantage in Florida, and the advantage in Florida is we have not only early voting and a lot of early voting, but we also have early voting by partisan registration. We know which party's asking for more. Look at the increase, people, at all of the early voting that's going on in Florida. For Democrats, it went from 1.92 million in 2012 to 2.43 million. For Republicans, it was 1.75 to 2.4.
That's a lot.
So Republicans got jiggy with it on early voting in a big way, essentially a tie, about close. So how did they do in Miami-Dade County? Gigundous. This is a county where Barack Obama won 62% of the vote, 2012, and they went from less than 500,000 to more than 700,000. How about in deep red Republican territory? Baker County, not a huge county, but representative of the most Republican. This was the county that Mitt Romney did the best in, almost 80% of the vote. They jumped up a corresponding amount. So both ends of the state, the South and the North, are both exercised. So what's happening in the I-4 corridor? All right, so here's Pinellas County. Not a big jump there. And this is where the president hardly any. This is where the president won, but narrowly. So what about Hillsborough County? This is a hugely important place. Again, not that huge jump that we're seeing in the other more red and more blue places. And then close off with Orange County. And there you see a slightly bigger jump. You have more than 100,000 more, and this is a more Democratic precinct. So that's what we know.
So what does that all mean then?
What does it all mean? Do we have a panel? Is there a group of people?
And Michael Meehan was crunching numbers on his way up here for Florida, and then I said, oh, Chris has a data dive. But do you want to supplement anything that he said?
Well, I think you've got a big Senate race there as well. So you have an interesting play on the early vote. I think you probably have 60% of the vote will vote before the actual Tuesday comes, which is a giant number. But there's a great dynamic. Typically, if you'd gone back to 08 and 04, Republicans do better in the early voting in the earlier part of last decade. It's only
in the mail-in vote.
In the mail-in vote, right? Yeah, in the mail-in, they were very, very good at that. So the fact that the Democrats are sort of here in a better, closer place is a sign that there's been more organization.
So, AB, what do we read into the fact that there's all of this dadgum intensity in the North, which is the Republican, and in the South, which is the Democratic side? We have huge turnout in the early voting, but then when we get to the swing counties, they're not jumping up that way.
Well, I think that people don't like either of these candidates. They don't like their choices. They're not very excited. Obviously, on the Clinton side, there's a lot of worry about her apathetic African-American support, young support.
You can tell.
She's not going to get the Obama coalition. It just doesn't apply. It doesn't transfer. So they're very worried about, they have many more supporters than Donald Trump does. And in polling, the African-American vote is 93-1 or whatever it is. Doesn't mean they're coming to the polls. So that's really the challenge that she faces in a must-win like Florida, is that those Obama voters might not show.
Tucker, do you think that Marco Rubio's Senate campaign and his get-out-the-vote efforts, which we know are probably really good, he's been up in the polls there, would actually help Donald Trump?
Oh, sure. I mean, they're organized. I mean, he's done this a lot. He's got professionals around him. We'll see how the Trump people do with the GOTV stuff. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to anybody if, it wasn't as organized as Marco Rubio's campaign. I will just say this, though. I would be shocked if Trump did not exceed Mitt Romney and John McCain's percentage of African-American votes.
Of African-American
votes? Yes,
and
I would be shocked. I don't know. I've been just trying to give a flat $20 bet to anybody that he'll do better than both of them for a bunch of reasons. But he's very ideologically different from them. And we have heavy-duty race politics going on now, really heavy-duty. So that's kind of obscured. He's a racist, okay, fine. But he's the only Republican in my lifetime, really, not to run on the Reagan economic program, which is not popular, actually, in the black community. It's a massive departure. So, why wouldn't he peel off a couple more points than they did? I think he will. Are you looking at me like I'm insane?
No, I'm thinking it through.
He's polling he's polling at 7-8%.
Right.
The high water mark was Nixon was probably 13, 14.
Nixon was a whole different deal, though.
But it's been at 6, right?
Yeah, well, it's 6 to 8 points around in that space.
Here's the thing that we know going forward. Since it is our second to last show, but if this show were to continue, one of the things that we could talk about is that the Republican Party must diversify if it is going to survive.
Figure something out anyway.
Because that is not good enough. And I actually think that they have, as Donald Trump is trying to point out, there are policies that could actually benefit, especially from an economic perspective, those communities.
True that.
If they just give us, or them, my former life a chance. Who am I? What am I doing
in
here?
Your former life as a Republican.
All right, stay tuned because the much anticipated I'll Tell You What news quiz is coming up. We'll see how closely the panel has been paying attention.
Oh, yes.
This week.
You're going to get it.
eyes are on the presidential election, but what lies beneath? The Senate hangs in the balance, and can Republicans pull it off and keep the majority? I'm going out on a limb.
Hit it.
I think they will, by one.
You think by one?
They'll have 51-49.
So it'll be 51. So they'll lose 3.
They'll lose 3, but hold the majority.
All right.
Anybody else?
Why don't we just randomly force the panel to make forecasts? I think random forecasts starting with.
And I'll tell you the one that I think will be a sleeper and a surprise. I think Ron Johnson will win in Wisconsin.
You really are having a lot of Ron John good vibes today.
Yeah, and I've never even talked to him.
If he would have grown his mustache back, I would say yes. But stashless, I say no. Michael, what's going to be the final count in the Senate?
Oh, I think the Democrats take it.
Well, sure.
You do.
Clearly. But I also think that Marco Rubio might be in more trouble than you think.
Get out of that.
Based on the data dive?
Front door.
Wait,
What are you
based on the
talking
data
about?
dive?
No, on his data dive.
Yeah, because
No, but based on on the Florida
Because what?
trial.
Why do you
people have
think
already voted. The people who already voted. So Cuban Republicans don't typically get all of the Hispanic vote. In fact, the Puerto Ricans have less use for the Cuban politician, and that's happening. That is all happening right now. And all in the I-4 corridor that you're talking about.
So you think it's closer?
If that Orange County number comes out 60-40 for Hillary, she's going to be pulling people, over on the other side.
So
of
your
the
Senate number is 50-50. Tim Kaine breaks the
50,
deadlock?
I guess to 51 without Kaine.
Get to 51 without Kaine.
I'm with Dana. I think they're going to hold it, and just by one. I'm going with 51-49. I don't know who loses because so many of them are tight, but Johnson definitely has a good chance. I just think, I just don't see the Democrats taking back. I think there's going to be a lot of ticket splitting, even if Hillary wins.
And what do you think will happen in Nevada?
If John Ralston is right,
Those
Nevada's
early voting
over
numbers
for the
are.
Republicans.
That wouldn't surprise. I mean,
But I'll put it on Ralston.
good call.
Fobbed off.
Sorry, Ralston.
Before YouTube, I would make a prediction because no one would ever be able to check.
We just killed this
I don't
segment.
want to do that. But I think that Ron Johnson is much more nimble than I thought he was going to be, and I agree with you about Marco Rubio. I don't think he's going to lose. I mean, that would be, you'd have to make up a lot of ground in order to beat him. But Florida's a different state demographically, and we're seeing, unfortunately, that is kind of, it's a census as much as an election.
And what about, Chris, can I ask you about North Carolina? Because that's the state that, like Florida, if let's say that Trump wins Florida, then the decision desk is going to be really looking at North Carolina.
Like
so there's
job.
also a Senate race in North Carolina. Richard Burr but they're basically tied.
Burr should be fine. If Burr really has trouble on election night, the Republicans are smoked, man. There's no chance. Now, I do like Kelly Ayotte and her chances in New Hampshire. I think that she has been written off too soon. I don't think Toomey is going to do particularly well in Pennsylvania because I think it may be stacking up the wrong way there. But Ayotte in New Hampshire, I think that's good to hold. You got 2 losses. Wisconsin, Illinois, and I'm starting to come around on Indiana too. I think that the GOP is going to.
I'm winning $100. I'm going to get $100 from Juan Williams because a month ago I told him that Todd Young would win in Indiana.
Well, and
he said I was crazy.
That's a no-brainer. I think you're totally right.
Do you know what's great about Dana Perino's fearless forecast?
What?
She is totally fearless about it. She
What are the consequences for being wrong?
All right. None. Not if you're you. If you're me, the consequences are none. The news quiz is next, but while we take this short break, here's what you need to do. Go to foxnews.com/PS podcast to listen and subscribe to our delicious podcast. And you can also sign up for the Fox News Halftime Report. I write it. You'll love it. It's free, so it's worth every penny.
Welcome back. It's time for the news quiz. I've been trying to do this for about 4 blocks.
Yes.
I love it.
It is our patented, never been approved upon Perino and Stirewalt news quiz. Da, 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 da. Our first question goes to Tucker Carlson. Intense fighting continues to rage in the northern Iraqi city of Mosul as U.S.-backed Iraqi forces push ISIS out of the city center.
This isn't about Florida.
Prior to the mass migration out of the city when ISIS took over in 2014, which American city had the population closest in size to Mosul? Was it A, Houston, B, San Diego, C, Detroit, or D, Pittsburgh?
Well, I've been to all of these cities, including Mosul.
Right.
So I don't...
You were the right person for this question.
I grew up in San Diego, so I'm going to go with San Diego.
The correct answer, amazingly, is Houston.
No, it's not that big.
Honest to God.
Houston's a huge
2 million human beings, about 2 million human beings lived in Mosul, which is about 250 miles north of Baghdad.
Of course.
And Houston is America's 4th largest city.
Houston is America's 4th largest
How is he supposed to know that?
Well, that's why
it's called the news quiz.
I'm not even embarrassed about failing it.
No.
AB, it's your turn. AB, it's your turn. A study from scientists at the University of Delaware found something fascinating about about sharks by using new kinds of electronic tags. What was it? A, they migrate, much farther than expected. B, they actually supplement their diets with seagrass. C, they are actually very social animals. Or D, they have their own language.
Come on.
I'll take any.
Well, no, you got to pick one.
I'd like a lifeline.
1 and 4.
Okay, let's see. They're very social.
Anybody? They are very social.
They're very social.
Okay, so you've been on the show twice. You got your both answers.
Wait, I thought you say.
I just have an innate feeling about sharks.
Sharks are not social.
They hang out. That's why it was shocking, because they hang out.
You know what? You never knew that.
No, I didn't. You're
What
right.
you found out is that they're
I don't believe it.
They're very weak. And our final news
quiz
quiz question goes to Michael. In one of Trey Gowdy's closing ads for his re-election campaign, the South Carolina congressman focused on what controversial issue? A, his interrogation of Hillary Clinton. B, gay marriage. C, birthright citizenship. Or D, his many, many hairstyles.
Oh, I wish it was D, but I'm going with A.
We get to turn the tables, and you can help me, panel. This is called Stump the Stirewalt. It's my favorite part of the show. 2 questions for you.